Haruka is a ugly loser who bags the hottest girl in school after drooling over her for years. However, everything changes when he learns that she's a freak who will do anything for him, so he starts cracking her every day. It all starts when Haruka dreams about his crush Ahiko showing him her roasted beef. But before he can feast his eyes, he wakes up in his class and catches her attention. For years, he has been thirsting over Ahiko because while he's a loser, she is a composed and reserved girl who excels in both sports and studies. Now he's done waiting, so he gathers his balls and decides to confess to her. After school, he asks her to go out with him, and she accepts his proposal, promising to be a good girlfriend since it's her first relationship. However, she shocks him by promising to let him hit it in all 48 positions, and he finally realizes that Ahiko is built for the streets. The next day, Haruka is daydreaming about finally bagging his crush when Ahiko suddenly shows up and asks if he'd like to part her legs, like Moses parted the sea. When Haruka asks why she's so freaky, she explains that girls who can't satisfy their men often end up alone, so he must tell her what he likes. Now blushing, Haruka says he's a submissive soy boy who likes everything, which she finds quite interesting. After class, the teacher asks Ahiko to carry the books to her office, but when Haruka offers to help, Ahiko mistakes him for someone who likes to take orders from a dummy mommy. After they drop off the books, Ahiko berates him thinking it'll satisfy him, but he tells her he's not a masochist. Later, he heads to the roof to have lunch with her and finds her listening to something on her phone. When he asks what she's listening to, she tells him she's watching tutorials on how to subdue her gag reflex. Ignoring her shenanigans, Haruka sits beside her and asks if he can have a picture of her, but she sends him some goon material instead, which catches him off guard. Later in class, Ahiko hears a girl crying over not getting some, so she gives him freaky advice to score men, causing the girl to run off in embarrassment. After that, the other girls in class start to gossip about Ahiko being a weirdo, making her question if Haruka feels the same way about her. Just then, Haruka shows up and gently asks her to walk home with him, making her blush as she realizes he doesn't think badly of her. The next day, as they're walking to class, Haruka notices something in Ahiko's ear, but when he tries to remove it, she quickly backs off. She then admits that her ears are her sensitive spot, but just then, a bunch of guys accidentally push Haruka closer to Ahiko, which flusters them both. Later in class, Ahiko asks him why he looks tired, and he tells her he's been studying till late at night. Just then, his childhood friend Shizuka shows up and accuses him of being a gooner. Haruka quickly shuts her up and then explains to Ahiko that Shizuka is his childhood friend, so Ahiko introduces herself as Haruka's girlfriend. Hearing this, Shizuka fakes her tears and teases Haruka about two-timing, but Haruka denies everything. Despite this, Ahiko gets the impression that they're freaky, and when Shizuka makes it even worse by acting like a hoe, he starts screaming at her to stop. To make amends, she takes them to the arcade after school and shoves them into the photo booth, where they take pictures together. For once, Haruka thinks Shizuka is trying to help, but then she doodles the pictures with sussy texts to tease him further. The next day in school, she shows up again and starts feeling Ahiko's jugs, before suggesting that he and Ahiko take their relationship to the next level by getting intense. Ahiko takes note of this and invites Haruka to the gym storage room, and Haruka starts to get nervous, thinking he's about to get some action. However, he finds Ahiko dressed as a clown, ready to whip his cakes. She soon learns that Haruka isn't as degenerate as she thought, and she apologizes for overstepping. As they walk back, she wonders how she can take it to the next level and decides to whisper cultured sounds into Haruka's ear. When she tries it for real, she ends up pushing him down and gets sad thinking she's a failure as a girlfriend. However, Haruka sees she's trying her best and comforts her, which makes her blush. He then tells her that she shouldn't force anything, and they should get freaky at their own pace. Hearing this makes her feel relieved, and she agrees to take it slow until they're closer to each other. The next day, it starts to rain, and while Haruka wants to wait, Ahiko suggests they run home, hoping that he'll get bricked after seeing her see-through plot covers. Just then, she sees a random girl holding onto her man's arm, so when Haruka pulls out his umbrella, she starts blushing and asks him to give her some time to adjust. Later that night, Haruka worries about Ahiko's health because they ran home without the umbrella and decides to text her. However, he notices his sister Kanata watching him like a creep and asks what's up with her. She then invites herself into his room and starts acting all sussy. But Haruka holds his Alabama urges and leaves a text to Ahiko. Kanata sees Ahiko's name and asks who she is, and when he says she's his girlfriend, Kanata tears up as she won't have Big Bro all to herself. Despite trembling, she pretends not to be bothered to come off as mature, but Haruka can see through her mask easily. She then makes him give her head pats, which lifts her mood. But when Haruka gets a call from Ahiko, she gets jealous and leaves the room. She then eavesdrops on their conversation and starts to wonder what kind of girl Ahiko is, so the next day in school, she decides to look for her. Unfortunately, she is caught creeping within seconds and unintentionally spills to Haruka that she came to spy on Ahiko. Just then, Ahiko shows up, and Kanata gets extremely jealous because Big Bro scored the juiciest chick in school. When Ahiko says hi to her, Kanata frantically tells her that Haruka always shares his snacks with her and also gives her head pats. She confidently claims that Haruka will always put his sister first, no matter what. But Ahiko mistakes their siblings' love for something else. When Kanata starts to get a little too bold, Haruka decides to calm her with head pats. But Ahiko becomes anxious, thinking he's going to give her head pats without the pats. Noticing the misunderstanding, Haruka takes Ahiko to the roof, where he clears everything up. But Ahiko now has a big bro kink and wants Haruka to find her stuck in the washing machine. Kanata is spying on them, and when she sees they're getting closer, she jumps in and starts throwing a tantrum. When Haruka tries to comfort her, she aggressively grabs his hand and unintentionally pushes Ahiko down. Haruka quickly checks up on her, but Ahiko apologizes for covering her twin towers and not letting him soak in her unplotted view. After that, Haruka decides to give an earful to Kanata, but when he sees that she's already trembling with fear and apologizing, he decides to let her be. Ahiko joins them and clears the air, even giving Kanata a handkerchief as a peace offering, which makes her tear up. In the end, Kanata eagerly chooses to become Ahiko's friend, and seeing them get along makes Haruka happy. A few days later, Ahiko announces the campus-wide cleanup week, and the boys start complaining because they don't want to do it. However, she tells everyone to treat it as if they were hiding their goon magazines from their nosy mums, and this lifts everyone's spirit. During cleanup, Ahiko teaches Haruka how to release gas from spray cans before disposing of them. Later, he passes this knowledge to Shizuka, but she finds a way to make it freaky. Afterward, he sees Kanata riding the broom like she's from Hogwarts, but when he tells her to get to work, she starts riding the broom in a completely different manner. On the other hand, Ahiko sees some boys trashing some personal belongings, and they joke that it's the same as trashing a girl after swiping her V-card. When Haruka shows up, she asks if he'd also trash her personal belongings, but he says he treasures the things he gets attached to. Hearing this, Ahiko realizes that he won't pump and dump her, and this makes her blush hard, which Haruka fails to understand. That night, he watches a television program teaching that a way to a man's heart is through his mouth, so she decides to cook for Haruka. However, she ends up making a new sentient being and is too embarrassed to open it in front of Haruka. Just then, Shizuka casually walks in and starts eating her own well-made lunch, so Ahiko gets on her knees and begs Shizuka to teach her how to cook. Because of that, Shizuka holds a cooking class with Ahiko and Haruka at her place. There, she teaches Ahiko how to prepare a meat stew, while also using every chance she gets to make freaky jokes. She also leans closer to Haruka and whispers in his ear that she wants his meat too, which bricks him so much that he has to relieve himself in the restroom. When he returns, he overhears Shizuka and Ahiko talking all sussy and thinks they're being scissor sisters, which makes his pickle tickle again. In reality, Shizuka was purposely saying double-meaning things to make Haruka want a cracker. Soon after, the girls finish making beef stew, and when Haruka points out that Shizuka seems extra happy, she says it's because she hasn't had dinner with anyone for a while, reminding him that her parents come home late. Afterward, Haruka tastes the food and compliments Ahiko's cooking, which makes her blush. She then recalls that she forgot to make dessert, but Shizuka tells her to stuff a banana between her milk factory and call it a day. She also says that she wants to taste Haruka's banana, and Haruka plays along, which gives her more reasons to be freaky. After dinner, Haruka decides to walk Ahiko home, but it starts to rain again, and Ahiko is glad to have brought her umbrella. However, when she sees that Haruka also has one, she decides to share it with him. As they walk, Haruka notices that she's still not fully comfortable, but he's happy that they're making steady progress. On the weekend, Ahiko tells his cuck dad, Natsuo, that her real daddy is coming over today, and says it pains his heart that his daughter is all grown up. However, Ahiko tells her the real pain will lie in her flap factory after Haruka is done pumping her. Since Natsuo is nervous, Ahiko's mom, Fuyumi, tells him to go for a walk while Ahiko leaves to get groceries. Soon after, Haruka shows up at her place and is greeted by Fuyumi, but she's so fine and busty that she mistakes her for Ahiko. After he apologizes, she tells him to come inside as she has some entertainment planned for him, which tickles his spidey senses. Inside, she offers him tea, and then bluntly asks if he brought any willy wrappers, because she doesn't want Ahiko to get knocked up so soon. She also asks if he has any siblings, and Haruka excitedly tells her that he has a lively younger sister. Hearing this, Fuyumi says she only has Akiho and is thinking about giving her a sibling, so she asks Haruka to recommend a yoga position more suitable for having a girl. Now weirded out, Haruka diverts Fuyumi's attention by pointing to the photo album, and while Fuyumi shows him old pictures of Ahiko, Natsuo watches from outside like a soy boy cuck lord. While Haruka notices that Ahiko is reading books in almost all the pictures, Natsuo recalls his initial years of having Ahiko. He was worried Ahiko would grow up to hate him, but Fuyumi had prepared a I Love Papa, Johnny Sins Edition movie to avoid that problem. A few years later, Ahiko ripped her drawing and started to cry, but Fuyumi took care of it by telling her to only cry when a guy rips her cakes. Ahiko returns and asks him why he's standing outside. Inside, Haruka helps Fuyumi tidy up, but when his tummy growls, he says he wants to eat with Ahiko and invites Fuyumi to join them. However, Fuyumi starts to blush, thinking he likes married women, and offers to let him hit it. Before he can clear the misunderstanding, Ahiko returns with lunch, but when Fuyumi tells her that Ahiko likes to keep it in the family, she starts to blush as well. Just then, Haruka spots Natsuo standing in the back and quickly introduces himself to the old man to escape the situation. But this makes Fuyumi think Haruka is a little fruity. Soon after, Haruka is about to leave, and Natsuo tells him to take care of his daughter. After Ahiko leaves to see him off, Fuyumi feels sad over not entertaining Haruka enough, which reminds him of the time Fuyumi would stay up late because of her. He assures her that she's doing amazing as a mother and a wife, and this makes Fuyumi really happy. A few days later, Natsuo returns home from work to find Fuyumi and Ahiko in the living room. When he joins them, Fuyumi tells him Ahiko is going on a date with Haruka tomorrow, and she was giving her daughter advice. This reminds Natsuo of his own first date, and Fuyumi adds that the baby-making chamber they went to is not available anymore. Fuyumi then tells Ahiko to swallow it to win over Haruka, but when Natsuo says it's too early for that, Fuyumi instead tells her to do her own research. That night, Ahiko learns that girls look cute when they tilt their heads, so she spends all night practicing her angles. The next day, when Haruka shows up at her place, he's blown away by how cute she looks. Later, as they take the train, they see an ugly couple being freaky on the train. And while Haruka is grossed out, Ahiko takes note of everything they're doing so she can later make Haruka cream. Soon after, they head to the cinema to watch a romantic movie, but when it gets too romantic, Haruka gets nervous while Ahiko takes notes of everything. Afterward, they head to a cafe where she excitedly tells him that she gathered a ton of research material and will soon give him soul-snatching sloppy toppies. Following that, the day comes to an end, and Haruka walks Ahiko home, telling her that she had a lot of fun hanging out with her. At that moment, Ahiko realizes she was too busy taking notes that she forgot to enjoy the date, and it puts her in a bad mood. Haruka gets confused and tries to lift her spirits by inviting her to another date where they can see cherry blossoms next Sunday. Hearing this, Ahiko cheers up again and suggests they have a picnic that day too, before listing dozens of snacks that she will bring with her. A few days later, Haruka excitedly walks to class as he looks forward to his next date. Just then, he catches a collapsing Ahiko, who says she didn't sleep at all because she was also very excited for their date. She then gets on her knees and whimpers how much she wants it, but everyone around them mistakes it for something sussy, prompting Haruka to rush her to the nurse's office. There, he tells Ms. Koshimizu that Ahiko needs to be checked, but she tells him he'll have to pay her with backshots to do a checkup. Afterward, she tells him Ahiko has caught a cold and he should call her parents to come pick her up. She then leaves Ahiko in Haruka's care, and Ahiko promises Haruka that she'll get better before Sunday so they can go on their date. Haruka tells him not to worry and have some juice, but she ends up spilling everything on her juicy jugs. To make matters worse, the fever gets to her head, and she starts acting like a hoe, right as Fuyumi walks into the infirmary. After Haruka explains what happened, Fuyumi takes Ahiko home, but it starts to rain afterwards. The next day, Haruka gets a call from Ahiko and excitedly rushes to her house, where she tells him she's now okay and ready for her date. They happily rush to the viewing spot, only to learn that the blossoms have already fallen due to yesterday's rain. This makes Ahiko extremely depressed, and she starts brainstorming ways to redeem this day. Seeing her in distress, Haruka tells her to relax, as they can always return next year, and realizing that Haruka wants to be with her long-term makes her happy. Elsewhere, a blonde girl is transferring from her all-girls school, and all the Scissor Sisters around her wave her goodbye. Soon after, she arrives at Haruka's school and introduces herself as Reena to the class. The girls in class start gossiping because Reena came from a super-rich school, and Reena says she's looking forward to making new friends here. Just as Haruka thinks she looks normal, she immediately tells the class that she likes getting romped with hairy males, sending the class into panic mode. Afterward, Reena tries to talk to the other girls, but they all avoid her due to her earlier statement. That's when Ahiko and Haruka say hi, and Ahiko introduces herself as class rep. Reena asks her why everyone is avoiding her, revealing she was actually talking about her family dog and not actual hairy males. She also reveals she's only ever been to girls' school, where she bonded with other girls by jiggling their jugs. Since she has never befriended a boy before, she believes the same applies to boys and asks to jiggle Haruka's nuts. As Haruka backs off, Reena believes he doesn't want to bond with her until Ahiko gives him a death stare. She then explains to Reena that she and Haruka are dating, and Reena asks Ahiko to explain the things she likes about this dud. Ahiko lists all the nice things, including his micro sausage, which Reena finds interesting because she's only ever seen girls in relationships. She then tries to get freaky with Ahiko, thinking this is how people form friendships normally, but Ahiko tells her to ask an instructor instead. She immediately takes Reena to Miss Koshimizu and asks her to teach Reena about boys, not realizing that she's the most degenerate person on campus. During lunch break, Reena stands in front of the lunch machine and tells Ahiko that she is C, but Ahiko thinks she's talking about cup sizes and says hers are even bigger than C. Haruka immediately tells her that Reena is talking about the lunch menu, but Reena plays along and says she wants a bite of her C+ jugs. Afterward, they head to the school roof, where Reena asks Haruka to tell her about topics that both boys and girls are interested in. Haruka suggests talking about music, and Reena shares her music interests, which are a little too freaky for him. Haruka then makes her play games on her phone, and she admits she enjoys them, though her mom doesn't let her play. Haruka then asks what kind of games she likes, and she says she likes the ones that wreck her. Afterward, as they walk the halls, Reena suddenly tells Haruka to go to the bathroom with her because she believes it's the best way to deepen friendships. However, when Haruka tells her off, she gets depressed, so Ahiko tells Haruka to reconsider. Just then, Shizuka shows up and asks them who this blonde is, and Haruka introduces her as the new transfer student. Shizuka immediately tells her she and Haruka are freaky in bed, but when Reena says she wants a three-way, Shizuka realizes she's got competition. Reena then reveals she's doing research on how to befriend boys, and Shizuka tells her to use her jiggle physics. When Reena asks her to demonstrate what she means, she reluctantly shakes her surfboard and then starts to cry, making Reena panic as she asks if she did anything to hurt her. As the crowd forms, Ahiko tries to damage control by telling everyone that Haruka is not a diddler but rather the reincarnation of Jeffrey Epstein, tanking his reputation in the entire school. By the end of the day, Reena thanks both of them for giving her an eventful first day and asks if they are now friends. When they say yes, she gets super excited and gives them goodbye kisses, which fries their brains. Haruka tells her friends don't usually kiss on the cheek, and Ahiko mistakes it for him, saying they should kiss on the lips instead. The next day, Haruka sees Reena in distress and asks what's up with her. In tears, she tells him that an old friend cut ties with her after she asked her to become her scissor sister. Hearing this, Ahiko jumps in and promises to be her friend for life, so Reena immediately fondles her jugs. Afterward, she tells her that he got licked last night, and when the class watches in shock, Haruka immediately explains to them that Reena is talking about her pet dogs. Ahiko asks for their names, and she tells them it's Butter and Margarine, and she often takes them on walks. Haruka suggests to Ahiko that they should go on walks too, and Ahiko mistakes it for him, saying he wants to dog walk her. Reena then plans a trip to the zoo with them, so they meet there with Shizuka. There, Ahiko reveals she is an expert when it comes to animals because her mom used to bring her here to see animals clap. Meanwhile, Fuyumi and Natsuo talk in the living room, discussing how Ahiko grew up so fast and is now getting cracked by her boyfriend. This reminds her of the time they used to go on dates, and Natsuo suggests they relive their glory days by going on another date. Fuyumi immediately calls up the zoo, and they decide to go there as well. Meanwhile, the group goes around the zoo enjoying all the spots until they come across a dog who's packing a whole Pete Davidson in the trunk. The girls start getting sussy after seeing it, and when Haruka anxiously suggests they go see the giant turtles instead, they tell him to show them his own giant turtle. Meanwhile, Fuyumi and Natsuo arrive at the zoo, and Fuyumi gets moist after seeing an elephant's trunk. Soon after, she comes across a crying girl who got separated from her parents, and seeing Fuyumi comfort her makes Natsuo proud. However, Fuyumi teaches the girl who monkeys clap, which makes Natsuo freak out. In his excitement, he sprains his ankle, and Fuyumi has to walk him back, which reminds him of a previous date during which the same thing happened. Just like back then, Fuyumi is not upset but rather really happy that she got to spend time with her loving husband, and it makes him happy that he married the right woman. Later, as the group calls it a day, Shizuka drags Reena away so Haruka and Ahiko can have some alone time. As they walk back, Their hands accidentally touch, and they start to blush hard. Just as they are about to hold hands, they run into Natsuo and Fuyumi. A few days later, Haruka sees that Shizuka has put cat ears on Akino, and he says they look good. Shizuka then tries to jump on him like a cat, but he dodges her, only for Akino to stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Later that day, Shizuka complains that her dad gave her an alarm trinket and she'll never use it. Just then, she gets a freaky idea and heads to the bathroom, where she uses it as a sussy toy. After that, they run into Reena, who excitedly tells them her mom bought her a cell phone and now she can watch uncensored redo of Healer in 4K. As they congratulate her, she says she's already mastered the etiquette of picking up calls, so Akiho asks her to demonstrate them. She then calls Akiho and asks what color of plot armor she's wearing today, and Akiho says she's bagging pink striped. Afterward, she notices that Haruka's phone is getting full signals and shows him that hers isn't getting any. Haruka believes something is blocking the signals, and she believes it must be her massive honkers. She then asks him to teach her how to take a selfie, and after Haruka clicks one for her, she realizes she can put filters on it. After looking through them, she excitedly runs around telling everyone she got facials with Haruka, making everyone think he cracked one on her cheeks. As Haruka runs after her to stop her, Kana asks what a facial pic means, and before Akiho can go into full detail, Shizuka stops her. Later, Shizuka complains that her hair doesn't stay down, and Reena says she's facing the same issue. Haruka asks what she means because her hair looks fine, and she reveals she is talking about the hair on her flap factory. The next day, she sings in class that she shaved her kitty, and Ahiko is so impressed by her voice that she asks for lessons. However, Reena believes she's asking for lessons on shaving and takes her to the restroom. Later, Ahiko says that alone time is very valuable in relationships, but when Haruka says he loves every second with her, she agrees to give him a hand. She also learned that when a lover romantically lifts your chin, it makes your heart pound, and Haruka starts blushing, thinking he'll follow it with a kiss. She adds that she also wants to learn to read his face and tells him not to speak to her, and Haruka dodges eye contact because he doesn't want to give away that he's thinking about kissing her. Later in class, Haruka realizes he forgot his book, but Ahiko senses this and immediately shares her book with him. During the test, he runs out of pencil lead, and she immediately gives him her own. Then, when his eraser falls, she quickly picks it up but bumps her head on the desk, which makes him feel bad. During lunch break, she quickly brings him choco bread because she thought he wanted it, but some boys call him a jerk for making a cute girl do his chores. During gym class, Ahiko chases after him to give him refreshments, but he tells her to take it easy. She believes she's not doing well enough and promises to work harder, causing others to say mean things about Haruka. Later, Reena notices Ahiko reading Haruka's face and tells her to read hers too, only for Ahiko to hear her tummy growl and tell her that she's hungry. Just then, Shizuka shows up and tries reading Haruka's face, noting that he also wants to eat something like her roasted beef. Hearing this, all three of them try to guess what Haruka wants to eat, and Haruka wishes her parents had just slept the night he was conceived. After school, he asks Ahiko to walk home with him, but she can't because she has a meeting. Haruka then heads off alone, while Akiho joins the class rep meeting, determined to make this school a better place. During the meeting, she suggests they teach boys to put on their willy wrappers properly, but the meeting head, Igarashi, immediately refuses her request. Another rep shyly says that the boys want their own changing room as well, and Ahiko thinks it's a bad idea because the boys will use it as their freak chamber. Now annoyed, Igarashi asks for a real suggestion, and Ahiko says boys should be allowed to carry goon material in school. Igarashi asks her why, and Akiho says that reading such books can lead to new discoveries about positions, and it also helps others relieve stress. Igarashi argues stress can be relieved through sports, but Ahiko says she expected her to understand that it doesn't work for everyone. When Igarashi asks what she means, she calls back to the time she heard him doing tongue training in her classroom. Igarashi nervously explains that she was practicing for the sax, but Ahiko and the others all think she's a degenerate and make fun of her. The next day in school, Ahiko gets hiccups, and Haruka looks for ways to get rid of them. She tells him to hop like a bunny, but seeing Ahiko's jiggle physics makes Shizuka feel depressed about her own surfboard. Just then, Reena arrives and tries to stop her hiccups by blocking her ears, but Ahiko passes out because her ears are sensitive. During science class, Ahiko continues to get hiccups, unaware that Shizuka is hiding in the closet, ready to jump scare her. As Shizuka waits for the right moment, she suddenly hears sussy sounds and falls out of the closet, thinking Haruka and Ahiko are cracking it. In reality, Haruka was trying to tickle Ahiko's nose to make her sneeze. Once she does sneeze, her hiccups go away, But Shizuka ends up getting hiccups herself. She begs Haruka to do something about it, so Haruka tells her to drink water and stick her tongue out, causing her to make sussy faces. Meanwhile, Kana is out buying snacks with her friend Saki, and after Kana picks up a chocolate-flavored Willy wrapper, she mistakenly puts it back in the snack shelf. Saki sees this and assumes it's a premium brand of chocolate, so she decides to buy it. She casually carries it to the counter, where the guy freaks out, thinking Saki is a bold hoe. Before she leaves, he offers to wrap it in a paper bag, but Saki casually tells her not to because she's taking it straight to school, which gives him a nosebleed. Saki then takes the Willy wrappers to class, thinking it's chocolate, only for her friends to explain what she bought. A few days later, Ahiko waits for Haruka, and when he shows up, he realizes that she looks bussin' in her summer outfit. She then twirls around, and Haruka says she looks really nice, but Ahiko mistakes his response for him wanting to see her plot covers. Later, they arrive at school to find a handsome Chad named Seiya attracting all the baddies at the front gate. As they watch him, Seiya drops a random fact that most male giraffes are fruity, causing the pygmy-hoes to go crazy. Later, Haruka thinks about how popular Seiya is and wonders if Ahiko gets moist around him too. He quickly shakes the feeling off, only to see Seiya pinning Ahiko against the wall. As Haruka watches from a distance, wondering how far friends can go without being freaky, but Shizuka shows up and tries to startle him. However, Haruka hugs her in his depression, and then realizes Shizuka is the only person who'd know how far friends can go. After he explains the situation to her, they both watch Ahiko and Seiya to wonder if they're friends or not. Just then, Reena arrives and tells them that you're friends until the tip, and anything more makes you lovers. Hearing this makes him depressed, but Shizuka tells him not to jump to conclusions. Not wanting to let someone else take his girl, Haruka mans up and decides to intervene. He asks Seiya and Ahiko if they are good friends, but Seiya tells him he was asking Ahiko how to get male friends. He adds that men around him dislike him because all the girls are always thirsting over him, but since Haruka is close with Ahiko, Seiya sought her advice to befriend him. This makes Haruka realize that everything he thought was wrong, and he agrees to be friends with Seiya. He also admits that he is embarrassed for thinking Seiya was stealing his girl and wants to crawl into a hole, and Seiya gladly offers his. Not understanding his intent, Haruka casually walks into the men's room with Seiya while Ahiko twitches in the background. Later, Ahiko and Haruka find huge bamboo decorations on the tree and realize that it's the Tanabata festival, the only day where star-crossed lovers can meet. Ahiko believes they must be desperate to clap since they only meet once a year, but when Haruka tells her this is not what it's about, she gets slightly embarrassed. Just then, Shizuka arrives to put on her own decoration, and Haruka sees that she wished for Haruka's family to stay healthy. However, when he takes a closer look, he sees that she actually wished for his family Jewel's safety. She then tries to put up a wish that she gets B cups, but Haruka stops her, which frustrates her. Just then, Reena arrives with her wishes of her own, one of which says she wishes for a deeper relationship with his sisters, which makes Haruka worry for Ahiko's V card. Just then, they're distracted by Seiya counting stars, who immediately starts to flirt with Haruka, which makes his backdoors clench. Later, as Haruka puts up his own wish, he sees Ahiko putting one up too and wonders what she wished for. When she asks if he's interested in seeing hers, he believes it must be something freaky and says no, which makes her sad. As she walks away, Haruka chases after her, not knowing that she wishes to spend the next Tanabata event with Haruka as well. The next day, the teacher announces a softball tournament in school, telling the students to warm up for it. Haruka sees Ahiko hopping like a bunny and starts eyeing her jiggle physics. When she catches her, she walks up to him and decides to relieve his stress by shoving her melons into him. Afterward, they practice throwing, and Haruka's ball always tilts to the right, but Ahiko says she'll still catch it even if it tilts. Later, Haruka realizes he's bad at batting too, but he wants to look like a Giga Chad in front of Ahiko, so she'll let him hit it. Seiya appears and tells him that he needs to soften his grip with the bat, and he can teach him how to handle a stick. Soon after, Ahiko sees them practicing and mistakes it for them getting freaky, much to her shock. When she intervenes to ask what's going on, Haruka decides not to tell her because he wants to surprise her, which shocks her further. Later, she returns to the field to look for Haruka, but she worries he's getting his pipes unclogged by Seiya. In reality, Haruka is jogging when he runs into Shizuka, who jumps into his bag and starts rubbing his coconuts to tease him. After she leaves, Haruka sees Kana practicing her strokes, but when Reena shows up to cheer Haruka for his game, Kana gets jealous because he now has multiple baddies in his life. Just then, Ahiko comes running in and is relieved to find him in one piece, right as the announcement speaker calls for their class to gather. Soon after, it's Haruka's turn to bat, and after getting 2 strikes, he looks over at the audience and sees Shizuka cheering him on. This time, he swings the bat and sends the ball crashing directly into Seiya's family jewels. Haruka quickly rushes to check up on them, and seeing this makes Ahiko think her man is fruity. After the match is over, Ahiko feels down, but when Haruka tells her he was practicing with Seiya because he wanted to impress her, her face lights up. A few days later, Haruka goes to the park with Ahiko, and when they spot a hairy dog, Haruka starts petting it. Ahiko then decides to feed it a cream-filled bread, but the cream slips on her fingers, and the dog starts licking her hand. After that, they play fetch with the dog, but amid all that, the dog returns with a sussy choker, which freaks Haruka out. As Ahiko wonders what kind of dog it is, it slides into her nether and gives her a tongue twister. Afterward, it turns its attention to Haruka, making him question who its owner is. Just then, Reena comes running in and reveals that it's her dog, Butter, which makes sense, because Reena is a freak too. The next day, Haruka learns of a school camping trip and is excited to go with Ahiko, who is more concerned about students losing their V-cards. She even prepares a dummy's guide to crank it in the woods, but Igarashi refuses to distribute it among students. She then reveals that Class 5 has decided on a nighttime test of courage and asks for suggestions to make sure students don't get lost. Ahiko suggests pairs hold hands, but Igarashi proves that she's a virgin by getting moist over it. When the other reps remind her that she was caught practicing her tongue game on sax, she gets annoyed and vows to prove that she's an ideal rep. She tells her class that she'll make the seating arrangements on the bus, but the class ignores her and leaves her depressed. As she goes on a walk to cool off, the other class reps ask her to give them an overview of the event, because they know how much she loves being in charge, and this makes her happy. A few days later, Haruka and Ahiko arrive at the camping spot, and Haruka notes that the air is fresher here. As they begin walking, Reena joins them too, and they head to the camp to cook. However, Reena's leg cramps up on the way, and Haruka suggests they take a short break so she can recover. He tells her it's normal for legs to cramp during the first time, but Reena starts blushing, thinking he's talking about that specific yoga session. Later, as Haruka is cutting vegetables, he accidentally cuts his finger, but Seiya arrives to disinfect it. Ahiko sees this and quickly snatches the opportunity, which makes Haruka cream. Afterward, Seiya tracks all the baddies with his stylish cooking, and the animals in the area also arrive to get a taste. Meanwhile, Reena prepares a separate dish for all the men, making Haruka wonder if she's trying to become the next Bonnie Blue, when in reality, she was making food for all her bodyguards. Back in school, Shizuka leaps onto a random guy, thinking he's Haruka, but when she realizes her mistake, she runs off in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Kana is at home, feeling quite bored without her big bro, but when he finally calls her, she lights up and starts acting as if he was desperate to talk to her. Haruka plays along and tells her he can't find a souvenir for her, but she throws a tantrum about it. At Ahiko's place, his parents sit on the porch, and Natsuo feels sad that Akiho will one day go off to be a wife. Fuyumi tells him not to worry because she'll stick with him till the end, and this makes him blush. Back at the camp, the whole class participates in the test of courage, and Seiya decides to play the ghost. However, Ahiko believes Seiya will use this chance to swipe Haruka's V card, so she holds Haruka's arm and tells him not to let go. Haruka believes she's scared of the dark, and takes it upon himself to be her macho man, not knowing that Ahiko is trying to protect him too. Just then, they spot another rep named Shizu, who was trailing them all this time because she's a freak who wanted to see them crank it in the woods. Just then, they hear Reena scream and rush to find her collapsed on the floor along with the ghost girls. When Ahiko asks what happened, she describes her experience as mutual fondling. Just then, they see Seiya swinging around like Tarzan, but before they can react, Seiya accidentally buries his cakes in Haruka's face. Just then, Igarashi walks in on them and sees the scene, which traumatizes her so much that she starts to cry in Shizu's arms. She then asks Shizu to sleep with her tonight, but Shizu starts to blush, thinking she's getting her cookie tasted tonight. At night, Haruka asks Miss Koshimizu for his room key, and she pulls one out from her milk factory, which makes him feel weird. Meanwhile, Igarashi and Shizu learn that it's Ahiko's first trip with her boyfriend, and Shizu is excited about Ahiko getting back shots at night. Later, while the others are asleep, Ahiko stays up thinking if Haruka has the balls to do it. Surprisingly, he shows up in her room and asks her to spend time with her, which freaks her out. He then takes her into the woods, and Ahiko gets increasingly nervous as she prepares herself for an intense workout. However, Haruka simply wants to show her a cool viewing spot he found last night, and Ahiko is relieved that she'll keep her V-card for now. Later, Haruka notices that there are calluses on his hand, and while Ahiko asks to see, Shizu watches from a distance, hoping they clap. Ahiko believes Haruka got calluses due to intense gooning and offers her own hand instead, which makes Shizu's heart race. Meanwhile, Igarashi sees the love in the air and gets furious because she's a certified virgin. She then sees a couple exiting the science lab and decides to guard it so no one else uses it for freaky reasons. While searching, she finds Shizu inside the closet getting moist over seeing others crank it. Shizu tells her she enjoyed watching it in 4K, but Igarashi scolds her for not stopping them. Just then, Shizu hears someone coming and pulls Igarashi into the closet. Seconds later, Kanata and Haruka walk into the lab to have lunch, and the girls see Kanata getting creamed, which shocks them. In reality, Kanata spilled milk on herself, but they think it was Haruka's milk and start tweaking inside the closet. In their panic, they end up diddling each other, and when Haruka opens the closet, he apologizes for intruding and closes it again. Igarashi panics and asks if he and Kanata clap here often, but Haruka thinks she's talking about lunch and admits to doing it every day. Igarashi anxiously asks why he's doing it with Kanata, and Haruka casually tells her it's because Kanata is his sister. After seeing Igarashi's reaction, Haruka realizes the misunderstanding and tries to clear it up, but Kana plays along and acts like an Alabama sister, causing Igarashi to run off in embarrassment. Haruka turns to Shizu in hopes that she will understand, but Shizu is already fantasizing about them getting freaky, and Haruka realizes there's no hope. Meanwhile, Igarashi is in the toilet, wondering if Haruka grew up with the Targaryens and vows to expose his degenerate ways. Later, she confronts Haruka in the halls and states that she'll punish him for his actions. Haruka tries to explain that it was a misunderstanding, but she refuses to listen and tells him to follow her to the office. As she turns around, Haruka sees that her plot armor is visible and contemplates whether he should tell her or not because he'll be labeled a creep either way. Thus, he decides to make her notice it herself by touching his own cakes, but Igarashi creeps out thinking he's trying to diddle her. Just then, Ahiko walks in and asks what's happening, so Igarashi asks her to give her opinions on what Haruka's been doing to her. She misunderstands the question and says that Haruka's been quite naughty, and Igarashi goes on a lecture on how he should behave on campus around girls. As she leans in, her cakes are increasingly exposed, and Haruka covers his eyes in embarrassment. Just then, she finally realizes that her plot covers are visible and suddenly goes red. She then recalls Haruka trying to tell her about it, and she starts to tremble because she judged him harshly. She believes Haruka will never forgive her, but Haruka gently tells her it's okay, and her soft attitude makes Igarashi's heart warm. Suddenly, he goes from a diddler to Prince Charming, and Igarashi gladly takes his hand, and they head to the office so Haruka can give her a written apology. Later, Ahiko calls him outside and declares that she will show him an unplotted view of her cookie, and Haruka realizes he once had a similar dream. As he wonders how he got here, he recalls that 1 hour ago, Ahiko was in the changing room, staring into the mirror in horror. Later, Shizu saw her walking in the halls while covering herself, and it turns out that Ahiko forgot her plot covers at home. When Shizu gets excited to see her chamber of secrets, Ahiko frantically looks around because she doesn't want to be spotted. Just then, Haruka shows up and suggests they grab lunch together, but she says she wants to return to class first. However, Haruka insists they go directly because the canteen is selling limited chocolate bread today, and she's forced to come along. There, they run into a huge crowd, but they manage to buy the chocolate bread, and Haruka suggests they head to the garden to eat it. On the way, the wind starts to blow, and Ahiko quickly covers herself and starts to suspect that Haruka purposely brought her outside because he wanted a sneak peek at her goods. As she starts tweaking, Haruka assumes Ahiko is taken aback because he invited her too aggressively, and he also recalls how she wanted to take things slowly. However, he wants to speed run to her roasted beef, so he decides to push her a little. They find a spot to eat, but Haruka insists on going to a more secluded spot and asks her to hold his hand. As they walk through the woods and reach the other spot, Haruka realizes he might have pushed her too far and apologizes. He admits that although he's happy, he shouldn't force her to do the things he wants. Hearing this makes Ahiko blush, and she believes he wants to get a glimpse at her no-no spot. Thus, she agrees to lift her curtains and tells her that she isn't wearing any plot armor, but Haruka starts to panic because he's caught off guard. He anxiously tells Haruka he didn't bring her here for this, only to see Shizu hiding in the bushes and getting moist over the situation. Afterward, the lovebirds clear the misunderstanding, and Haruka is relieved Igarashi didn't see them. Meanwhile, Igarashi is in the toilet again and senses something sussy going on in the school. She quickly gets up and decides to investigate, but her skirt gets stuck once again. Later during gym class, Ahiko is stretching like a pro, and Haruka decides to join her because he's stiff. However, she believes that stiffness in boys' cases is a sign of good health. Haruka then sees Reena struggling to stretch, but she says she's soft in the right places. Soon after, the teacher announces that the class is over, and Ahiko decides to put back the gym equipment as class rep. Haruka and Reena join her too, but Reena gets tangled in the net. When they try to help her, the teacher assumes the locker room is empty and locks it from the outside. Now in darkness, Reena begins to panic and pulls Haruka into herself for comfort. Ahiko decides to join them as well, and Haruka's face gets buried between their milk factories, which makes him cream. He quickly separates himself and turns the lights on, only to see Ahiko and Reena in a sussy position. Just then, Reena's boy guards break down the door and assume Haruka is a cucklord who likes watching others. The next day, Haruka gets a random delivery at home, and it turns out to be an inflatable wife from the guards, so Haruka can become a real man. A few days later, Haruka is waiting for Ahiko to show up for their date, but she calls him to let him know that her father isn't well and she won't be able to make it. Haruka anxiously asks what happened, and she reveals her parents had too much bed breaking last night. After wishing the best to her father, Haruka hangs up and sees Shizuka walking towards him with a mischievous smile. When she notices that he's all alone, she gives him a sussy look and suggests that they walk around together. Seeing him getting uncomfortable, she holds his pinky and asks if this is okay. But when he says no, she slides her pinky into her no-no zone and asks if this is okay. Haruka tells her to back off because he's already hot from the summer heat. But Shizuka says she's cold and can absorb his heat by holding him. In response, Haruka places his hand on her cheek, which causes her to go red. Despite that, she grabs his hand and drags him into a plot armor store where she tries on a cute costume. For once, Haru is relieved that she is acting normal, but then she goes back to put on another dress and calls for him to help her. Haruka casually walks in, only to see her plotless back, which makes him freak out. After that, she wishes to try on a swimsuit, but when Haruka decides to leave, she mocks him for being a virgin. Just then, the store owner arrives with a size 8 cup swimsuit for her, but she frantically says that her size is bigger. Later, she heads to the store and directly into the willy wrapper aisle, much to Haruka's shock. After that, they head to a restaurant where Haruka's food turns out to be super peppery, and Shizuka jokes that he's too young to handle the sauce. However, Haruka gently tells her that he enjoys her cooking way more than anyone else's, and this makes her face go red from embarrassment. Following that, she suggests they see a Johnny Sins movie, but when Haruka says he wants to go home, she complains that he hasn't spent time with her in so long. As Haruka reluctantly agrees, they approach the counter holding hands, and the receptionist offers them a couple's discount. Shizuka is amused to have caused the misunderstanding, and Haruka tells her to keep her hands off him. Later, as they walk to the park, Shizuka is beaming with joy, while Haruka is tired and wants to go home. However, she offers to make him a delicious meal, adding that her parents aren't home today, so dessert is on the menu as well. However, Haruka proves that he's the chief of Virginville by completely missing her joke and responding casually. At night, he arrives at Shizuka's place, and Haruka is glad because she looks happy to have him. Just then, he hears her scream and rushes to her room, only to find her handcuffed on the floor. He worries that there's a burglar in the house, but Shizuka reveals she was going to prank him with handcuffs, which backfired on her. Now, she cannot find the keys and also has to pee, so she forces Haruka to become her hands. Afterward, he takes her back to her room, and she tells him to make dinner. Haruka heads to the kitchen and finds lots of long vegetables, and she tells him to leave some for her late-night activities. After she's fed, she tells Haruka to help brush her teeth, and Haruka is forced to tolerate her as she makes sussy noises. After that, she demands a wash, but Haruka thinks she wants him to bathe her and utterly refuses. However, Shizuka reveals she was talking about laundry and uses this chance to make fun of Haruka. Afterward, she asks to be carried to her room, imagining Haruka carrying her like a princess. But Haruka carries her like a body bag, and she gets upset over it. Haruka then puts a blanket on her, and she feels warm in her heart, reminding him of the time he took care of her many years ago. Back then, it was Shizuka's first time staying alone, and Haruka showed up to comfort her. He also ended up crying with her, and she comforted him too. Recalling the past, Haruka notes that they've grown up so much, but Shizuka is happy he's still as kind as ever. She then puts her head on his shoulder and says she's happy to have him, but Haruka gets flustered and pushes her away. He then sees that she had the key in her pocket all this time, and she purposely restrained herself to make him spend more time here. She then asks him to get the key, but when he tries to, she starts making sussy noises, which annoys him. The next day in school, as Ahiko thinks of ways to make up with Haruka for missing their date, she sees Shizuka showing off her new cookbook to Haruka. He tells her he's also participating in the upcoming cooking class, but he's nervous because he isn't very good. Ahiko overhears this and decides to cook for Haruka to make up to him, but then she realizes Shizuka is way better at cooking and will steal her wind. The next day, Ahiko arrives in class after reading several cookbooks and starts making something for Haruka. However, her creation turns out to be an abomination, which makes her anxious. While Haruka watches her, Sei arrives and starts flirting with Haruka, which catches Ahiko's attention. Because of this, she starts a fire in the kitchen, but she's too focused on protecting Haruka's V card that she doesn't even notice. After finishing her burnt dish, Ahiko self-hypnotizes to try it and somehow finds it bearable. She also asks Reena to try it, but before Haruka can stop her, Reena takes a bite and tells her it tastes really nice. In reality, it is so bad that she's dying, and she tells Haruka to keep her secret as her dying wish. When Ahiko learns of this, she gets so embarrassed that she leaves the class, telling Haruka that she'll make him lunch some other day. Haruka gently tells him he wants to try the one she made today, but she refuses to let him have it, claiming it's her duty to protect him. However, Haruka says granting his wish is also her duty and smiles at him, which makes her heart warm. He adds that her efforts are what matter the most, and even if he becomes sick after eating it, she can always nurse him back to health. Hearing this makes her cry tears of joy, and she promises to take care of him. Unbeknownst to them, Shizuka is overhearing all of this, and she decides not to intervene even though she made Haruka's favorite dish. Later, Haruka runs into Ahiko and Shizuka discussing the contents of Haruka's dustbin, and they believe it's full of sticky Sydney Sweeney posters and a nasty pile of tissues. However, Haruka tells him to come to his room and explore every inch, not realizing that they're going to explore his inches instead. A few days later, Haruka waits for Ahiko at the mall, and once she arrives, he's taken aback by how pretty she looks. Before he can process this, Haruka holds his arm and tells him she loves him, which makes his mind blow. After that, they spend the entire day doing what couples do, and while they're chilling in the park, Haruka starts to feel uneasy because Ahiko has been acting differently. Just then, Ahiko leans in for a kiss, and Haruka panics, only to wake up in class and realize he was dreaming. He looks up to see cakes, and Ahiko walks up to him, telling him to stay seated or everyone else will see his little Johnny. Hearing this makes him relieved that Ahiko is still the same in the real world. A few days later, Haruka is studying for an upcoming exam, but he can't seem to understand anything. Ahiko sees this and tries to help, but her methods are a little too freaky for him. Later, Seiya joins him and tries to help, but he's only specialized in the problem of filling holes. Afterward, he heads downstairs and sees some girls asking Reena to teach them. Haruka realizes Reena also gets good grades, but when the girls start to get desperate, he wonders what kind of teaching they are talking about. Just then, Kanata shows up and asks him to teach her, only to be joined by Saki. Haruka introduces himself as Kanata's brother, and after Kanata tells her that Haruka agreed to teach her, Saki notes that he seems like a decent brother. She wonders if he'll teach her too because she wants to get a taste of having a big bro. Haruka then asks Kanata what he wants to learn, and she reveals she's been struggling with a very specific biology lesson. While Haruka freaks out, Saki gets sussy and says she'd love for him to teach her too. However, when she learns what they'll be studying, she gets shy and heads home. In the end, Haruka teaches Kanata and she's happy to spend alone time with him. She excitedly tries to get the notebook from the shelf, but her hand can't reach it because she's a shoddy. Seeing her struggle, Haruka lifts her up and allows her to reach the book, but she gets sad that she wasn't helpful. However, Haruka gives her head pats and this makes her blush. She nervously thanks him in a low voice, but when he asks what she said, she runs off in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Shizuka heads to a new ice cream store where the waiter Asaki tells her all cups are on sale. Shizuka orders a mega cup size for herself, but she starts to cry wishing she had mega cups too. After she leaves, Saki wonders if she said anything wrong to make her cry, but she's distracted when Seiya comes to her store. Once inside, he orders an ice candy, and Saki tells him there's a buy one get one free offer. Seiya excitedly says this is her first time having one stick in each hand, and Saki wonders if he's a little fruity. After he leaves, Saki notes how she's getting weird customers today, only for Ahiko to show up and order a banana in 2 scoops with condensed milk on top. Saki chooses to deal with her professionally, thinking that she's the one who's weird and the customers are just making regular orders. However, Ahiko starts taking sussy pictures of herself right before the banana slips into her chest cushions. Saki offers to give her a tissue, but Ahiko is unhinged and starts taking pictures of her melons. After she leaves, Saki gets anxious because every customer is weirder than the previous one, but she also worries that others are normal and she's the sussy one. Just then, Haruka shows up, and when she asks him for his order, he says he doesn't remember the name. All he knows is that it's a round palm-sized thing, and milk comes out when you suck it. This finally pushes Saki over the edge and she closes shop, not realizing that Haruka was asking for Tama Tama ice cream. That night, Saki walks home embarrassed, wondering if she'll ever be able to face customers again. While she imagines sussy things about herself, Shizu spots her and decides to follow her. The next day in school, Haruka is sleeping in class and Ahiko tries to wake him up by promising to let him hit it. When he doesn't wake up, she realizes Haruka is in deep sleep, so she sits beside him and watches him sleep. Now blushing, she tries to play with his hair, but Haruka suddenly wakes up and notices Ahiko with her head down. He starts petting her head thinking she's asleep, and Ahiko blushes as she keeps her eyes closed. After she wakes up, she tells him she was awake, and Haruka asks if she's upset about him touching her without permission. Ahiko says she's not because it's a girl's desire to be touched by her lover, but she gets embarrassed and runs off. Confused, Haruka chases after her and apologizes for touching her because he thinks she doesn't want to be touched without permission. However, Ahiko shyly says she's a bit jealous he got to pat her head and she couldn't, admitting that she tried to pet him while he was sleeping. She then asks him if he'd allow her to pet him, and Haruka happily agrees to it. Then, suddenly, Ahiko cups his face in her hands, and Haruka closes his eyes thinking she's going to kiss him. However, she starts ruffling his hair and notes that she can use both hands too. Meanwhile, Igarashi finds Shizu sleeping in class, and when she wakes her up, Shizu asks for a tissue to wipe. Igarashi believes she wants to wipe her drool, when in reality, she wants to wipe something else. A few days later, the class holds a school-wide sketch meet, and Haruka joins Sia as they draw a chopped tree trunk. They also start talking about food, and Seiya says he'd like to eat something spicy in this heat. Haruka says he prefers bitter things, so Seiya asks if he wants something bitter and slimy. Just then, Ahiko shows up to save his V-card and takes him away. Later, he runs into Shizuka making Reena model for her sketch, and he decides to join them. Just then, the wind exposes Reena's cookie, but Haruka doesn't notice and casually says he wants to get a closer look. Shizuka panics and tells him Reena will get embarrassed if he watches her up close, so he suggests Shizuka switch places with her. However, Shizuka panics and pushes him away, while Reena smirks as he thinks Haruka is a daddy-dom. Following that, Haruka joins Ahiko, who agrees to serve as his model, and while sketching her, he reflects on how far they've come. Once it really hits him, he freezes and blurts out that he's in love with her. This catches Ahiko off guard, and she asks for a timeout so she can collect herself. After that, she shyly thanks him for everything, and admits she also loves him, which leads to a sweet moment between them. After that, Ahiko gets embarrassed again and asks for another timeout. Soon after, Haruka finishes his sketch and thanks Ahiko, who shyly asks him to show her what he cooked. Once she looks at it, it's so bad that she starts pouting and decides to go home. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and watch this video on screen.